Just keep in mind I'm holding this with one hand, trying to hold the light. This is not at home in my own shop, trying to do my own thing. Toward the sandpaper, but that's better than having the wood piece pop off. So you can use a series of these sticks. If you get up underneath the rim, you can, if you're careful, and if your lathe will go slow enough. If you don't grip this between your fingers, if you don't use a sanding glove, if you hold it in your fingers like this, slow enough speed, the right sandpaper, you can sand that inside mount. This is at your own risk. AAW would say never do this. Use some sort of instrument, some sort of tool. It's hard to have enough tools to fit every shape you can create. These are infinitely flexible and changeable. So I will indeed sand the inside with sandpaper held with a light. What's that?
As long as you have them.
As long as I have them. I still got 10. Okay. So the next one, the next grit, I would rotate the opposite direction, go to the next finer grit, wouldn't skip a step just like the others. If I'm only going to be able to see the very bottom, I'm not going to waste my time with this. If I'm going to put a lid or a finial in it or a collar like Tom does, I don't care about any of it. You'll never see anything. There'll be just a shadow inside. Now wood, I can't leave this totally rough with fibers hanging off. I would at least knock the fibers loose on any of my work. Right? And don't cut a hole in the side. It's a neat way to get rid of shavings and stuff. But it was done just to kind of show you. And you know how hard it is to take a piece you've worked on this hard and run it through the bandsaw? Anybody ever see Richard Raffin? Anybody ever watch Richard Raffin's videos? He'll take a bowl that's just perfect and just go right through the bandsaw, just like, and never hesitate. And you look over in the corner of the shop, he's got all these half bowls everywhere. I got half bowls too, but they don't have straight edges. All right, so to do the foot would be the last piece. So if you want to remount this, now I trued up this rim last night. This thing was warped all crazy. I trued up. It should work this way. This is a really good way to hold the end of a piece. All right, I'm not going to open those jaws very hard because it'll crack the piece, and that's certainly not what I want to do. One way, it's not quite as easy to lift this piece on and off, so I just slide it out of the way. Now if this, oh, that's something I didn't say. I need to see. I know that we've told you this before. Ed, can you be in charge of my chuck key? I can't see. Yeah, a really neat thing to have, you get one of those little cheap magnetic trays from Harbor Freight and keep it on the ways of your lathe. I keep my chuck keys in it, my pencil and all that stuff. But you see the little thing in the bottom, it's got that little indentation. That's the dead center from when I first turned this piece. You want to leave it there until the last minute. Because what it does, if I put this on here and expand it out, let's see how true this will run. You see a little bit of wobble right there? Now the faster I go, the worse that's going to be. It's harder to sand something wobbling at fast speed than it is slow speed. If you ever have a problem of skipping part of a piece that's warped because all the wood will, turn your speed way down, let your hand float with it. And your hand will go up and down with a warp, so it'll keep your sandpaper or your tools in contact with it. Right, so I want to make sure that this life center goes right back in that hole to keep everything concentric. So I leave that little divot in there. I loosen up the jaws just enough so that the life center forces the piece to be centered again. And then tighten this back up. Now, it's up to you to decide how much pressure to put on these expanding jaws. Depends on the thickness of the wood, the kind of wood, how wet it is. It's just a matter of feeling. I think I'm okay there. I didn't quite find the center where this This chuck is just a little bit out of round. I don't know if it's the chuck or the shape, but it's making a little bit of bounce. We'll pretend that's not there. So with this, if I put the tool rest on first, I could put my tool right here and I could shave off most of this foot. I could undercut the bottom. I could sand all the way down to the very smallest little nib and still be safe. This piece is going to keep this piece in here even though the jaws are not really tight. When I'm done, and I need to get rid of the last little bit of that nib, let's say it's all gone now, I can take this out of the way. You guys try demonstrating sometime. Everybody needs to demonstrate once. You will go home and kiss everything you have in your shop because it'll work right there. It won't work worth the damn here. So to get rid of that now, I move my tool rest up in very, very light, delicate touches. And this thing may even move and warp a little bit. But the good news is you've already sanded most of this. The part that this rim will sit on, it's flat, it's smooth, it's sanded. I don't really care if that dish in the very center right here is a little bit off center. It doesn't matter. It won't affect the piece at all. So I can take really light cuts, get that off of there. Any questions about any of this stuff? Anybody do it differently?
Well, for me, when I sand the bottom, I used to do it like that, and I found I got better control. What I end up doing is I put the Jacob's chuck in the headstock, put a pad on it, and then I just hand hold the piece against the thing turned into the headstock.
And so you hold it right here?
Well, I'd have here, I'd have the pad coming out, like this pad here, all right, would be coming out of the Jacob's chuck here. And I just hold it this way. And that gives me a lot of control. It allows me to get on the corner so I can really get an undercut and stuff like that.
It's just like somebody was saying earlier, when it's First National, there are so many different ways to do it. That's not the right way. This is not the right way. See the difference? So this is not the right way. This is my way with this piece. I have other pieces I can't do this on. I can't expand the jaw because the hole is too small. I got to figure out a different way to do it. I have a piece that I bought from Alan Lacer. I paid Alan Lacer, gosh, $85 for a piece that's made by a machinist, and it's a shaft and a machinist weight and a pulley off of something, just a pulley wheel, a block of plywood, and some foam rubber glued to the end. Now that thing is dead straight. With a Morse taper on this end, I put that in. If I'm doing like a bowl or a dish or something, I would have this long shaft sticking out here, and that would go inside, and that piece of plywood would rest inside the bottom of this thing. And then I would capture this end here, and this end right here may sort of wobble around a little bit, but I could stuff paper towels in there. There are all kinds of ways. If I really need a hard, tight hold on this thing, I would use that piece. It depends. Or if this was really thin and I couldn't use expanding jaws, I would use that piece. The rubber chuckies. I've got, this will also fit on a number 2 Morse taper piece, and that'll be in here, and you can drive it with this piece if you've got a delicate piece, because that's soft rubber. You can also buy these and cut shapes and steps and rings if you want to do jam chucks on here. There are all kinds of ways to hold a piece. It's not what tonight's about. It's about sanding, but you got to know how to hold a piece to get to the bottom to sand it or to sand on the inside of the foot. When I do these at home, I don't ever do this anymore for the same reasons you've just seen. I always, always, always use a faceplate with screws. All my faceplates have 8 screw holes, and I use 8 screws. Right? I never hold it in a chuck like this anymore. Now, if I've got a little small piece, I'll do that. But something this size would have stayed on the faceplate until I was ready to turn it around and do that head. I would have hollowed it out. I would have done the outside, hollowed out the inside. I would have sanded, and only then would I take it off the faceplate and part off the foot. It's a whole lot safer. It's steady. It's not going to move. It's not going to change. Okay? So I would highly recommend you guys using faceplates. And just, people say, well, geez, I got this beautiful piece of wood. I bought it from Keith. I paid Keith $95. Well, that's pretty cheap. I paid Keith $150 for a piece of his wood. I want to use every little cubic millimeter of it. Well, yeah, you probably do. But if this thing flies off and cracks, how many millimeters you got left to work with. Sacrifice some of the wood and just use shorter screws. Make sure you use all 8 of them. Okay? Finish is a whole different story.
You saw that piece of wood that came around, about this big, you should raise your prices.
You shut up. All right, any questions? All right, fundamentals, I didn't want to spend the whole time actually sanding. I don't have a dust collector. I'm not going to breathe this dust for you guys. I like you, but I don't like you enough for that. And you guys sitting in the front row, you've all seen our dry wood sanding demonstrations. No point going there. It was just about the steps and maybe some ideas of how you can hold pieces next time you go to sand and what's appropriate and what's not. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.